Evening, everybody, to tonight's council meeting. We appreciate you signing in and spending some time with us for the next hour and a half or so. So let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance of the flag, and then Mr. Lesher is going to lead us with the prayer. Or I'm just the opposite of that. He's going to start off with the prayer, then we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance of the flag. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. If you will join me in prayer. Almighty God, your apostle wrote that if one member suffers, all suffer together with it. And we are witness to the suffering of those in our community who find themselves without housing options, who lose their lease or their house with nowhere to go. Remind us to be keepers of our brothers and sisters in this community, providing good and sound opportunities for a place to live securely. Guide us, too, as we continue to fight segregation and exclusion in housing, and lead us to see the humanity in one another, regardless of heritage or upbringing or skin color. Guide our actions tonight. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
Yep. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Lesher, for that great prayer. So let's get started tonight, Council, with what's on the agenda. Council has agenda before them, April 27th. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? Sorry about that, Council. Sorry about that. Hearing none, the chair moves that the agenda be accepted with unanimous consent. Okay. Next is disbursements of April 20th and April 27th. Council has had a chance to review the disbursements of the 20th and the 27th. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the disbursements? Okay. Hearing none, the chair moves that the disbursements be accepted by unanimous consent. Okay. So first we have Madam Secretary will be reading a proclamation into the record for Fair Housing Month of April. Madam Secretary, could you go ahead and read that for the record, please?
Proclamation, Fair Housing Month, April 2021. Whereas the Fair Housing Act, enacted on April 11th, 1968, enshrined into federal law the goal of eliminating racial segregation and ending housing discrimination in the United States by prohibiting discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, sex, familial status, national origin, and disability, and committed recipients of federal funding to affirmatively further fair housing in their communities. And whereas the 1968 Fair Housing Act, which guarantees the right of all Americans to dwell in the neighborhood of their choice, is one of the most important components of our national civil rights policy. And all those through our social fabric, the economy, health, and environment are strengthened by diverse, inclusive communities. Acts of housing discrimination and barriers to equal housing opportunities still persist, and communities remain segregated, even though the Fair Housing Act was passed more than 50 years ago. And whereas acts of housing discrimination and barriers to equal housing opportunities are repugnant to a common sense of decency and fairness. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Talbot County is committed to the mission and intent of the Fair Housing Act of 1968 to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all. And be it further resolved that we, the County Council of Talbot County, do hereby declare April 2021 as Fair Housing Month in Talbot County and are committed to promoting appropriate activities by private and public entities to provide and advocate for equal housing opportunities for all residents and prospective residents of Talbot County. Given under our hands in the Great Seal of Talbot County, this 27th day of April in the year of our Lord, 2021.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, is there a motion and a second to approve this proclamation?
So move, Corey.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
All right.
Okay, so Jess, do we have somebody online? Do we have Martha?
Yes, Mr. Callahan, it looks like we have Susie Hayward with us tonight, and I believe
have
Ms.
Susie?
Hayward.
Okay.
Yes, and Ms. Hayward had indicated Ms. Suss, Martha Suss would be able to join us, but we don't see her as an attendee at this time.
Okay, great. Susie, are you with us? Hey, Susie, are you with us?
Hi there.
Hey, Susie.
I just want to thank the council for joining the Midshore Board of Realtors in celebrating Fair Housing Month. Thank you so much for the proclamation.
Oh, you're welcome, Susie. Thanks a lot for being part of that, and we really appreciate all the Midshore Board of Realtors do for us too. So, council, Laura.
Appreciate all that you do and that everybody that works on this very important topic. Thank you very much.
Mr. DeVillio.
I greatly appreciate the Midshore Board of Realtors bringing this to our attention and getting it on the agenda for tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Lesher.
Well, the wording of the resolution is strong, and it is challenging and alarming. In fact, that there are still barriers to desegregation in housing, and we need to continue to work away at this. So I thank all of those involved in making that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Lesher. Mr. Pack.
Yeah, I join in my appreciation for the Midshore Board of Realtors for bringing this proclamation to our attention. And I also will agree with Mr. Lesher that it's unfortunate that we have to still in this day and age continue to push for fair housing. Susie, as we're coming to the end of April, have we missed anything that the Midshore Board of Realtors did around fair housing? Were there any events, virtual or otherwise, that you want to talk a little bit about?
Well, we agree with both Councilman Lesher and Councilman Corey Pack that more work does need to be done. We have incorporated a number of educational seminars that we encourage all our members to participate in. Fair housing is very important, and it's an ongoing learning process. We are committed to it, and we are encouraging our members to partake in all the educational processes. So we thank you all very much.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Susie. I appreciate you doing that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Council, we have another proclamation, which is National Travel and Tourism Week, and we've got the pretty Cassandra here on film here. Yep.
Watch yourself now, Mr. Callahan.
I know it. It's all fair now. It's all fair. Madam Secretary, could you put the proclamation into the record, please, and read it, please?
National Travel and Tourism Week, May 2nd through May 8th, 2021. Whereas the travel and tourism industries offer employment and business opportunities to Talbot County citizens and create enjoyable, meaningful, and memorable experiences for those living in and traveling to our beautiful destination. And whereas the tenacity and ingenuity of frontline workers and business owners in travel and tourism, along with a commitment to social distancing, mask wearing, hand sanitizing, and immunization against COVID-19, have allowed an industry that has been negatively impacted by the pandemic to recover to a point where patrons and tourists may once again enjoy their restaurants, entertainment venues, and hotels. And whereas the national and regional trends show an increase in those willing to travel again to enjoy all that the travel and tourism industries have to offer. And whereas the Talbot County Department of Economic Development and Tourism, the Talbot County Tourism Board, and the Talbot County Economic Development Commission, along with the businesses supporting travel and tourism, have joined together to bring the industries back to normalcy with ardent vigor and dedication. And whereas Talbot County has and will continue to be a leader in protecting its citizens, visitors, and businesses against the negative impact of the pandemic. Now, therefore, we, the County Council of Talbot County, do hereby proclaim the week of May 2nd through 8th, 2021 as Travel and Tourism Week in Talbot County, and encourage all citizens of the county to recognize the importance of tourism on a local, statewide, and national basis. Given under our hands in the Great Seal of Talbot County this 27th day of April in the year of our Lord, 2021.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Is there a motion and a second to approve the proclamation?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Madam Secretary, there's a motion and a second. Could you please call the roll, please?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
All right.
Thank you, Council. So we would love to welcome Cassandra Van Hooser, which is in charge of tourism and travel. Everything. She's in charge of everything. So really appreciate you being here, Cassandra.
Thank you, Mr. President. I sure appreciate you having us and you declaring National Travel and Tourism Week for Talbot County, as we will follow along the trends with the state and with the nation. And instead of going on myself as I normally do, I have brought a friend and a colleague and my board chairman, Captain Judy Pixler of the Oxford Bellevue Ferry. Now, Captain Judy is not just my board chairman, she is the state tourism development board chairman. So
Awesome.
I'm going to yield the floor to her and let her give some comments on behalf of the tourism businesses and the tourism industry.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, Judy, how are you?
I'm great, Chuck. Thank you for having me.
Good.
All the members of the council, we really appreciate this proclamation. You stand by the tourism industry and all the time, and we really appreciate all of that. And we thank Laura for all her long-term helping out, being our liaison to the tourism board. So it is National Travel Tourism Week. The theme this year is the power of travel. And I think that we certainly can see that Talbot County has some wonderful benefits that come to us because of the tourism. Visitors often become residents or business owners. That provides employment. It's the first job for many of the people who will become our future leaders. If you ask around, you'll find out that many, many people had their first job in tourism. So that's really great. Our area is enhanced by the number of restaurants, shops, attractions, lodging that we have because of the fact that we have people traveling to our area. We wouldn't be able to sustain all these great places if it were just up to local residents. So that's another positive aspect of our tourism and travel. The added money that comes in from sales tax, from accommodations tax. From a state viewpoint, every household would have to pay more than $1,000 more in taxes if it wasn't for the money that comes in through tourism. So that's a big thing. Tourism gives back. That's one of the mantras that, I constantly preach. Travel and tourism also contributes to our well-being. If we can take a break from the daily pressures of life, being able to just sort of reduce stress, it's all positive aspects of our travel and tourism industry. There's educational opportunities. I mean, Talbot County is a wonderful place. We've got history. There's the geography of our area, the 600 miles of shoreline that we are so proud of here in Talbot County. It's just really neat for all of those kinds of things.
We have a ferry.
Oh, we have a ferry that's going to open soon, so we're really excited.
Exactly.
Waiting since last November to get our Coast Guard inspection. It's coming up the end of the week, and
Good.
Saturday we're opening the doors. We're going to have travelers aboard crossing the Treadavon River again. So we're excited.
That's awesome. That's great.
And not just a ferry, Mr. Callahan, but the oldest privately owned ferry in the United States.
Nice.
That's correct.
Nice.
I want to know, when we first came to the council almost 20 years ago, it's hard to believe. I've been a captain of owning the ferry for 20 years now. We were reminded that this is the county's ferry. We're the caretakers, but it's really your ferry. So the county's ferry will be opening up, and that'll help the power of tourism coming up. So
that's awesome.
Thank you again for the proclamation. We really appreciate it. And I'll turn it back to Cassandra. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to chime in.
Well, I can't think of a thing that I would say any better than that. I will just say we want to give special appreciation to the frontline workers in the tourism industry as they've carried on throughout this pandemic and continued to be open and serving our visitors. So kudos to everyone who has soldiered through.
Yep. Thank you, Cassandra.
I'd like to mention something that we talked about at our last tourism board meeting last week, that for the first time, I believe, we're going to have joint tourism and economic development. And, we put these departments together years ago. And I do believe this is the first time that we're going to do that. And I think that's going to be something we do hopefully a couple of times a year. So I'm really looking forward to that and getting those two boards together to powwow, because they are so interrelated to each other. So I'm excited.
Good. Thanks, Mr. Price. Mr. Pack?
Yes.
You want to comment, or was that the ferry boat thing? Was that
Captain Judy has done a wonderful job, as she always does, and of course Cassandra's stellar. What more can I say?
Okay.
Congratulations, lady. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. And thank you, Judy. Thank you, Cassandra, for all that you are doing for tourism. It truly is a keystone industry in this county. I know myself very well, making my living in it as well. And we are all looking forward to the good work that you are doing in helping the tourism industry bounce back this year. We're counting on you. We're counting on all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Mr. DeVillio.
I always love it when one of my friends around here, when I say, what are you doing this weekend? Well, I'm going to play a tourist. I'm going to go to the restaurants, I'm going to go in the shops, I'm going to walk around. And it's going to be a great weekend every time. Whether you live in Easton, you go to Oxford or St. Michael's or what have you. We are truly blessed with some wonderful places to go and relax and enjoy it here. And I appreciate you two both for keeping those on the forefront of everyone's mind to keep those businesses afloat, keep the employees making money, and keeping Talbot County a clean, beautiful place to visit. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Villa. Well, like everybody said, Judy and Cassandra, you guys mean a lot to us, and tourism means a lot, and you guys do a huge job for us. And we thank you. Thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you again for having us.
Okay. And we'll see you Friday. Do you want to say anything about Friday?
Well, I was hoping that you would, and thank you for that. Everyone is invited to our virtual Business Appreciation Summit on Friday at 8:30 a.m. And you can come for free this year because it is a virtual event. We have a great speaker who's a rural futurist, and she's going to talk to us about the bright future for rural places like Talbot County. And then, of course, we will give our Community Impact Awards, and we have 6 spectacular winners. So it should be a really inspiring program. We hope that everyone will join us, and we'll direct you to talbotworks.org to register. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you for coordinating all that, Cassandra. I'm looking forward to it. So if anybody wants to see anything very funny, I got to start it off. Okay, so so it's going to be fun. And Clay's going to be there to actually just back me up just in case something happens.
I told you guys need to go on tour.
Exactly. We're going to be making some money, man. Trying to bring in some money. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everything.
Thank you again.
Okay, thank you. All right. So next on the agenda, we got eligible for vote 1471. Madam Secretary, would you please read the bill into the record, please?
Bill number 1471, a bill to repeal official zoning map 41 of Talbot County and reenact the same with an amendment changing the zoning district on a portion of tax map 41, parcel 68, remaining lands and lots 1, 2, and 3, consisting of 2.029 acres of land, more or less, from the Village Hamlet VH zoning district to the Western Rural Conservation WRC zoning district.
Okay. All right. Do we have Mr. Thomas here?
And as this is a zoning map amendment, under state law and the county code, the council is required to make certain findings of fact before making a decision on the bill, including whether the proposed amendment is consistent with the purposes and intent of the comprehensive plan, whether it's compatible with existing and proposed development and land use in the surrounding area, the availability of public facilities, the effects of the proposed amendment on present and future transportation patterns, the effect on population change within the immediate area, and the recommendation of the Planning Commission. But once those findings are made, then the council can only grant the proposed rezoning if it finds that there has been either a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood where the property is located or a mistake in the existing zoning classification. You are not required, even if you make one of those findings, you're not required to grant the change, but one of those findings must be met in order for the rezoning to be approved. You have proposed findings of fact attached as Exhibit A to Bill 1471, as well as comments from the planning officer, Mr. Salinas, in his staff report. You are not bound by these. These are for information. You can amend them as you see fit based on your findings. I will note that the proposed findings state that there has been a substantial change and a mistake. However, you may amend those as you see fit. And then I'll turn it over to Mr. Salinas for more information about the staff report.
Hey, good evening, members of the council. Just first off, I apologize for the rather lengthy staff report you had to read through. But all the information is there. It gives the recommendations from the Planning Commission as well as the staff. Although the Planning Commission recommended support for the rezoning based on the finding of the substantial change rule, staff has the opposite recommendation, which is a finding of support for the rezoning based on the mistake rule. I think it's laid out pretty well in the staff report. The property that's going to be rezoned, or that is proposed to be rezoned, excuse me, a little over 2 acres, is comprised of predominantly non-tidal wetlands. That would be rezoned to WRC, which would allow the applicant, if it's rezoned, to use one of their development rights on that WRC parcel. Peter Cotter, who is agent for the applicant, I believe should be joining us with the meeting. If you have questions for Peter, I'm sure he'll be more than happy to answer them. Other than that, I stand for any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Miguel. So,
I have a question. So it says that it will create one new buildable lot. If it was not changed, they would not be able to build the one lot. Is that correct?
That is correct. There's a significant portion of that large lot is in conservation area and can't be developed. And the rest of it, although it hasn't been completely investigated, probably has a significant amount of non-tidal wetlands. So they have 3 development rights on that big parcel, but I'm not sure if they can use all 3 development rights. Certainly, as it stands today, they can't. If the rezoning were to occur, what would follow is a subdivision lot line revision to add the newly rezoned 2 acres to that larger parcel, which would give them enough area to put one home on it.
So basically they're going from having the rights to 3, but they're actually going from 3 to 1. It's not giving them any additional building rights. It's actually making use of what they have so they can go to 1.
That is correct. They'll have 3. If they are able to get a home on it, they'll have 2 left. I'm not sure if they'll be able to ever use those 2 based on the significant environmental features on the large lot. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I don't know whether the applicant is online with us or not, Mr. Salinas, but I would like to kind of flush this out a little bit more if we could regarding the mistake claim. I would disagree that there was substantial change to merit the map rezoning. And I'm a bit confused on where the mistake in existing zoning classification would come in. So I don't know whether the applicant or his attorney could maybe walk us through that.
Is Mr. Cotter online?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, how you doing, Mr. Cotter? Would you like to comment on behalf of the of a few things here?
Certainly. In regards to Member Pack's question, I think that the specific mistake that the applicant believes it was made is that the lands in question have significant features, sensitive area features on them, and those features under the current village hamlet zoning aren't protected to the extent that they would be under the Western Rural Conservation District that we're asking to the zoning map to be amended to. And because of the presence of all of those features, we believe that when it was zoned village hamlet, it was a mistake. In addition to the presence of the sensitive areas, the Western Rural Conservation Zone would allow for less dense or development than the current VH. And we think that the characteristics of the areas that we're asking to be rezoned are much more consistent with WRC and were at the time it was zoned as village hamlet. So those are the reasons why the applicant believes there's been a mistake in the zoning, and that which would support a change at the current time. As attorney for the council pointed out, the change of mistake rule requires 1 but not both. The Planning Commission believed it was change. It was our position that it was mistake from the beginning, but certainly, we believe it could be either, and don't take a position as to one or the other than to say that we think that the mistake rule is I don't want to say easier route, but it's much easier to support given the facts in front of us, specifically because of the presence of these sensitive areas. And if you look on Exhibit C to the proposed legislation, you can see the features, or at least what's believed to be the sensitive features, cover almost the entirety of the area that we are proposed to be rezoned in a way that the other VH lots that kind of surround it don't share. So specifically, that's why we believe that there was mistake was made, is that this lot that would be created has significant sensitive features that aren't present in the majority of other lots that are surrounding it in the VH zone. And there's the WRC would provide for greater protection of those areas in any development that would occur on that lot.
Mr. Pack?
Okay, I'm looking at that now. So you're saying that the sensitive nature of the ground is what the mistake rule that you guys are going on under, just the sensitive nature.
That and because it is the first part is that those areas are present there, and the second part of it is that the Western WRC zone provides greater protections to those areas in development of those lots that the VH doesn't. So they are related, but I would suggest that those are 2 separate reasons. 1 is because they're present there, and 2, because the WRC provides greater protections for those areas in development of that lot that the VH would not.
This lot that's in question it's under the same ownership. Is that correct?
Correct.
So whether or not it's developed, it's clearly up to the owner. If he chooses not to develop the lot, then the lot wouldn't be developed.
Well, certainly to the extent that there is a choice of whether to develop it or not, yes. But we believe that, as Mr. Salinas said, there are 3 development rights on the property as a whole, and this allows for development of one of those lots. And I would agree with Mr. Salinas that due to the features and the rest of the easement on the area, this is pretty much the cap out. So while development would have 3 rights, this is the only one that we would be looking to develop. So it requests to develop that one parcel with the understanding that the 2 other development rights would essentially go unused on the parcel.
Right. But I guess this is where my confusion comes in. It is still the owner's choice whether or not he uses all 3 of those development rights or not.
Yes.
But I'm not really clear of the mistake argument here, and I guess that's what my hesitation is. I mean, I've seen maps done that it was clear that a parcel should have been left out or included in. They had a little piece of a parcel that was cut around and it should have been a straight line going through. But since this is clearly the owner's right, whether or not he would develop it or not, I don't know where the mistake truly is. It's just hard for me to see. I mean, this is not like it's a carve out or a panhandle. It's straight line going from one side of Bellevue Road straight up and up.
I think what the applicant believes is that if you look at the parcel of development as a whole, as it stands right now, the areas that are zoned Village Hamlet, with the exclusion of this 2 acres that we're talking about right now, do not have the features and did not have the features, the sensitive environmental features, at the time the rezoning took place, such that because this area has those features on it, it was a mistake to include it in the VH zoning at the time it was done, because the VH zoning doesn't provide the protections in regards to development of those sensitive areas that the WRC would. And also VH provides for a higher density, also provides for commercial uses, none of which are really compatible with the agriculture, the rural nature of this particular portion of the property.
And this property is on public sewer, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, I think that's what I read. So, I mean, that's a good thing. So, with the one parcel, getting developed, it's not like we have to worry about another septic system or things going out. I mean, it's already connected to public sewer, which is a good thing.
That's correct.
Which is probably, again, leaning back to my hesitation on whether or not this is truly a mistake. It's already on public sewer.
But you're saying the tidal wetlands have changed when it was rezoned. The tidal wetlands weren't there before and now they are. And so that's the change, right?
The argument that I'm making is not so much change as it is that there was a mistake, that those wetlands were there at the time this was originally zoned as VH, but that wasn't taken into consideration when it was zoned as VH. So that was a mistake to include that in the VH zoning because of the presence of these wetlands.
Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, we went through these maps pretty extensively a few years ago, when we reclassified our villages, going to our 3 designations, BC, BR, VH. And I know there was a fairly amount of time spent on making sure that certain lots were in and certain lots were out. I just don't know whether or not this is truly a mistake based on what you're saying, that those features exist on this lot, and therefore, because it has sensitive wetlands on it, it should not be included into a VH category.
But we don't need both. We only need one, change or mistake. And we got two groups that are telling you either or, but it needs at least one of them. So it doesn't matter which one, I guess.
Well, it certainly doesn't meet substantial change in that area. I mean, that certainly can't be an argument. Even your own planning director is saying that argument doesn't hold water.
I see the change. I see the change as more of a protection.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it. Yeah, so I see what he's trying to say. He's more protecting that piece of property that.
But the owner has the right, Mr. Callahan, whether or not the property can be developed. If you choose not to develop your property, then it won't be developed. So where's the mistake? The choice is up to you whether or not you choose to develop your property.
Right, but that's the current owner. What if he sells it and then somebody else wants to do more? This actually, Mr. Callahan's right. This actually provides more protection to do it this way, so there'll be one lot instead of three in an area that is sensitive. So yeah.
But again, you cannot use environmental protection as a mistake.
Okay, then it's a change because they weren't.
Yeah, right.
But if you want to use a change, you got to show a substantial change to the village. Where's the substantial change to the village? There has not been a substantial change to the village of Bellevue. Show it to me.
If I may, and I would ask Mr. Salinas to maybe provide some further context, but my understanding is that, when you talk about it's the choice of the owner to develop, I mean, that is true, but my understanding is under the current VH zoning, I'm not sure that property there would be developable. So part of this is the development, in order to access one of those development rights, the VH zoning, I don't think allows for it. And I'm not exactly sure from a technical standpoint of what the reasons were, but the point is that in order to access one of those development rights, we believe that because of the sensitive nature of this piece, that it was a mistake to include it in the VH to begin with. And I don't know that it is necessarily strictly up to the owner at this point as whether or not it's developed. My understanding is there are some issues with the current VH zoning that would otherwise render it undevelopable other than the change in zoning. And again, Mr. Salinas may be able to provide greater context for that from a specific and technical standpoint, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, so when after the 2016 comprehensive plan was approved by the county council, if you recall, there were a number of maps in that comprehensive plan that had recommended boundary adjustments for villages. Following the adoption of that comprehensive plan, Bill number 1402, which was effective in November 10th, 2018, when we updated the zoning ordinance, also did a comprehensive remapping of the county to adjust those village boundaries in accordance with those maps in the plan. The map for the Royal Oak area adjusted that boundary to include that 2+ acres in the village of Royal Oak. So I think Mr. Cotter's argument is that probably should have never been included in that map, that it was a mistake because the majority of that 2 acres is in non-tidal wetlands. So I think Mr. Cotter, if I understand you correctly, that's your argument.
That's correct.
Okay. Let's move on a little bit and let's go ahead and
Mr. Callahan, I've got a question too.
Sure.
It seems a little odd here, and I think I'm buying the mistake argument here. But it seems kind of odd, and there's probably a better word for this, that by making this change to a more restrictive zone will actually allow more development because it makes this lot developable. Are the lots that are now in the VR zone not developable as they are, and this will allow the one developable in the WRC's newly created lot in the WRC zone now to become developable? Is that the way I understand this?
I can try, Mr. Cotter, I can try to answer that maybe.
Certainly.
As it stands now, that 2+ acres in the VH zone, the village zoning allows 1 unit per acre with a minimum lot size of 30,000 square feet if it's served by sewer. So that 2+ acres, because there's a significant amount of non-tidal wetlands on it, I don't know if they could get 2 homes on 2 lots in that 2+ acres. Maybe they could get 1, not sure. But if it's rezoned to WRC and added to that larger lot 10 or those remaining lands, right now, those remaining lands have 3 development rights, so you can build 3 homes on it. Right now, because of the significant environmental features, they probably can't use any of those development rights. So they can't build 3 homes on it. Not quite sure because some of that large parcel was never investigated. The non-tidal wetlands were never delineated specifically in sections of that large property. If the rezoning were to happen and they revise their plat to add those 2 acres, which are now zoned WRC, it would give them the ability potentially to build 1 home on that large parcel, using up one of those 3 development rights, leaving them with 2 remaining. Whether or not they could use those 2 remaining, we wouldn't know unless an engineer or surveyor went out there and delineated whether there was sufficient buildable area outside of all those significant environmental features.
And I would just add from the applicant's point of view, understanding that the applicant is not looking to give up the fact that there are 3 development rights on that property for the simple reason is that it might be transferred at some point. But suffice it to say that there are no plans to develop anything more than this 1 lot, and we would agree that it would take a significant amount of investigation, and we don't believe at this point anyway that it's feasible to do so. So the rezoning would be for 1 development right, understanding that while 2 remain, they really aren't feasible in any real way at this time, and we have no plans to develop them further.
Miguel, prior to the passage of Bill 1402, were these 2 acres included in the HV or not?
They were not. I think the boundary was readjusted to include them in the village.
So there's our mistake, right?
I think that's Mr. Cotter's argument.
Yes, that's right. Without getting into rehashing it, but yes.
That the original mappings prior to Bill 1402 did not have these 2 acres in the VH.
Correct. I'm pretty sure. I'm verifying right now.
Can you verify that? If that's the case, you're probably onto something.
And I believe, I'm not sure if it was this particular rezoning or not, but I believe the VH was created as a zone in 2014. Before that, it was a similar
BC.
Zoning,
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, everything's BC.
Yeah, it looks like I just want to be really careful here. I answer this correctly. Zoning guidance. It looks like hard to tell. It looks, I believe it was the boundary lines were adjusted to add that into it.
Mr. Callahan, could I ask that we not take a vote on this tonight until I can confer with Mr. Salinas and see if that mistake is really true? That prior to 1402's passage, that this lot was not included in the VH?
When does the bill?
I just want to be sure that the mistake is actually a mistake.
Where does the bill expire?
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to ask.
Susan, you're muted.
We're meeting next week.
Yes, but next week is not a legislative day. The bill expires on May 13th, so it would be eligible for vote next on May 11th.
Okay, there you go.
Hey, Miguel, can I ask you a question, Miguel?
Sure.
Yes. Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable at this point that you sort of feel that that was a mistake and we're doing the right thing?
Mr. Callahan, could I ask that I review the math prior to us voting on May the 11th?
Well, I'm getting to that, but I want to hear what he has to say.
I mean, I think the argument can be made. Let's just say if you're creating a boundary around a village, if you're looking at what the pattern of a village lot is, which is maybe an average of less than an acre per lot with homes on it. So they're smaller lots. They're low to medium density residential housing in the village. If you were looking at where you're going to outline a village, you probably wouldn't put in an area of land that is mostly non-tidal wetlands because you couldn't develop it as a village lot, really. So, I mean, staff's recommendation was we would mistake rule, but yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, Mr. Pack, I will ask council if we could push this a couple of weeks to make sure you're comfortable with this ruling with the zoning.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
But we do also have the recommendation of the Planning Commission to do this, right?
Right. We just need Corey on board and comfortable. That's all.
I support giving more time for this for those questions to be resolved.
Okay.
And Mr. Pack, I will take a closer look at the former legislation and Bill 1402 to see if I can get something clear on that for you.
All right, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks a lot, Mr. Cotter and Miguel, for asking that. So, okay. So, everybody good? Council good? Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. All right. So we're gonna move on to our next item, which is a presentation Ray Clarke's going to give us with the priority listing of the Maryland Department of Transportation. Ray, you with us?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep. Exactly. Yep. You want to start off?
Sure thing.
Yep.
Each year, I guess we're asked to provide the Maryland Department of Transportation as well as state highways with a priority ranking of state projects that the county would like to see done, I guess, or improvements on. We actually provided the 2020 list. Our number one ranking project was basically the Maryland Route 33 capacity and evacuation improvements. And then we broke up number two into three projects along Route 50 through Easton. And that was Route 50 at Maryland Route 328, the Goldsboro Street intersection improvements. We also had Route 50 and Maryland Route 331, the Dover Street intersection improvements. And then 2C was basically Route 50 and Chapel Road intersection improvements. Our number three project was the US Route 50 and Maryland Route 309, Maryland Route 662 intersection capacity improvements. And our final project was basically Maryland Route 329, Royal Oak Road safety improvements. At this point, I think what we're, with the work that's currently happening out on Airport Road with, I guess, some development within Easton Technology Park. Mike put together, I guess, a suggestion for, I guess, redrafting Airport Road. And I don't know if the council's been provided that information or not. If not, I can let Mike talk to you about that.
Mike, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. How you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Good.
So I guess we already had an item in there. I think it was put in, I guess, when the hospital relocation looked like it was imminent. And so I think a lot of those needs are still valid, but we thought it might be best to enhance it to address Airport Road, which we're looking into whether or not we can do improvements on that road, but also it's really turned into a part of a bypass, if you will, to Bay 100. And so it's always been an issue there where 662 and 50 or I don't know, they can't be more than a couple 100 feet apart at the most. So it's always been a little bit of an issue. So we thought that maybe this would be a good opportunity to reinforce that with State Highway, that something should be done there. Even if they don't do the interchange yet, that they should at least address it as at-grade intersections. So that was the thought process anyhow.
Council, I just would also highlight, I do know that we had an accident, I believe, at the southern, I guess where 322 and Route 50 came in together. And I don't know, there were some emails earlier this week about maybe adding that to the priority list, if that's something the council would like to consider.
And I certainly support that. And would that simply be a new numbered priority, number 5 on this list now?
Yeah, I think what the question would be is with the council, where do we want to rank that as far as the priority? Do we want to make that our number 2, or do we want to make, do we want to make maybe the 2 A, B's, and C's, move that down, and maybe move the issue that we recently have down at 322, make that our number 2 project, and then the let's say Airport Road our number 3 project, and then move the 2A and B and C down to number 4.
So I come from a sales background, and story selling is very important, and we have some excellent, horrible stories right now for that intersection that have been front page of the newspaper and spoken about many times over in this community. I would be in favor of moving the bypass, the 322 Parkway, to number 1 at this time. I think that this is an immediate priority that we have a lot of reasons for that have just happened horrifically to address. And if they turn it down now, I think then we can always bump it down. But at this time, I think that it's our best opportunity to get that terrible intersection fixed.
Okay. Well, if it's okay with the council,
we'll St. Michael's Road to number 5 while we wait to find out what happens there.
Okay.
I mean, what's very frustrating is this is basically the same list. I've been on the council for 11 years, and they've done none of these projects. So while we need to send the message up and we can change the numbers around and show them what our priorities are, fact of the matter is they haven't had any money, they haven't done any of these projects in a dozen years. So you kind of go, what's the point? Why do we even bother sending it? Is this ever going to happen? And how do we make it happen? I mean, last year they sat there and told us that there was no money to do it. I think we all know 2020 was weird, but it's like, okay, you told us this is just an exercise in futility. It seems like it's been an exercise in futility. And, every summer at Mako, we sit there and we go through all these things, and then they come here and all the different transportation departments that sit in front of us and we do this. This is like 3 times a year we do this begathon and nothing's ever happened. Is there anything more that we can do to start shaking up the state to do some of these projects?
I would be happy to work with Mr. LeCase to try to get some documents, some pictures, some articles, and some statistics together to put in front of them every single time we have to speak to them about this.
One thing to jump in here is Brian on here, Jess?
Yes, he is, Mr. Callahan.
Okay. How about Holly? Is she here? Is she on too?
I believe it's just Mr. Lacates this evening.
Okay. So Brian, you want to jump in there on some consideration of some stuff on some data?
Sure. Good evening. Thank you for having me here. So we did do a little bit of data research on both the north end and the south end of the bypass, both intersections. And the south end of the bypass at Route 50 is certainly where we see the more serious accidents. I also believe that might be low-hanging fruit for Department of Transportation, since I think a lot of it could, or some of it could be corrected maybe just through creating a actual light pattern versus a flashing red and people proceeding on a flashing red. So that might be something that they might look at that doesn't cost a lot of money. It's just a reprogramming, I would believe. Certainly not an expert in that, so don't hold me to that. But so yes, we've run some data. I'm happy to share those numbers with you if you would like.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So just talking about personal injury collisions, this would be aside from anything that is just property damage, like a small fender bender or something like that. So anytime there's been a personal injury collision on the south end of the bypass, in 2018, we had 6 occasions. In 2019, there was 8 occasions. In 2020, there was 3 occasions. And so far in 2021, as of yesterday's date, there has been 5 accidents, with the last 3 being rather serious. I believe 2 of them being fatal. So that intersection certainly is of concern for emergency services anyway.
Thank you, Brian. So, council, does council have any other questions for Ray or Mike or Brian? Okay, if not,
so do we have we don't yet have proposed wording for this new priority if it were to be added to this list. Is that something that we'd look asked to be drafted?
It would have to be drafted, I guess, and submitted up. I believe this is due later this month, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure the date.
This month, meaning April?
I'm sorry, May. I apologize.
So, yes, I got a question for you. So as of right now, should we vote on this list, or we need to make up a new list and come back to this next meeting for a vote?
Well, if we have time to do the drafting, I would give direction to staff at this point to say, let's add that as a priority. We can give direction as to where we'd like to see that on the list. I certainly would also support the modification of priority 3 as proposed by staff. Thank you for your attention to that. But let's take a look at that before we hand it up to the state. And if we've got time to do that, move that to the agenda for our next meeting.
Okay.
Just this is Mike Mertaugh. Just for clarity, are we looking to add it as an item for the north and the south tie-ins, or one in particular, just for clarification?
It is the south that has the easy fix. Is that correct? The north would be a comparable complication to some of these other intersection improvements.
I would agree. Yes.
If we're going to put this as a number 1 and go for an easy win, let's make it easy for them to give us a win.
Okay.
Madam Secretary, can you, I guess we'll get with staff and we'll redo the list and we'll come up with the new list for next meeting. Can we do that?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Is council okay with that? Everybody on board with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good. All right. So let's move on. I don't think anybody else has anything else. Thanks a lot, Brian, for hanging out. You and Mike and Ray. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's do the update at the airport. Micah, you with us?
Yeah, good evening, President Callahan. I'm here,
Okay.
Council.
Good. All right, you got 3 minutes.
Everybody.
All right.
And I see our president of the advisory board, Mr. Jack Pettit, should be with us this evening as well. This is his first appearance since COVID.
Good. Is Jack with us now?
I see his name down there.
Okay. Jack, are you with us?
I'm here.
Okay, great.
Good evening, Jack. And also, too, was Jeff Langford able to join? Jeff is our new business and marketing coordinator that we brought on last month.
Yes,
Jeff,
Mr. Risher, he's on, and we'll just elevate him so he can be part of your presentation.
Okay, that's wonderful. Yes, so we hired Jeff about a month ago. I'd like to start with him because he's been doing a fantastic job. Of course, we brought Jeff on board to add to our staff to improve our customer service with our existing tenants, explore new business opportunities, develop some creative marketing strategies, and increase our community outreach, involvement, and our education piece. So I'd like to give Jeff just a minute to talk a little bit about being on board with the county.
Okay, welcome, Jeff.
Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me?
Yep, hear you loud and clear.
Well, thank you so much for having me today, and thank you for the introduction, Micah. And I'm very excited to be here at the airport. This is on my second month now, so I'm getting to that stage now where I have to start saying I don't know and that I know everything. And luckily, I have Micah here who just seems to be a wealth of knowledge about everything when it comes to the airport. So I can always knock on his door and ask a question, and we get a lot here. So it's been fun to really get those phone calls and meet the crew that's out here, to meet the businesses that are here. They just all do some wonderful work out there. And just really excited about the fact that we're able to start opening back up to the community. And we have some things we'll talk about here shortly, some community engagement that will be happening here this spring and summer. But as maybe some of you have known, I'm sure you remember me, some of the town council meetings of coming from economic development on the town of Easton side of things. So it's really nice to kind of be able to do a little bit of everything when it comes to marketing, engaging with the businesses, still dabbling with the economic development here on the county level. And I'm really pleased to be here with everybody.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. Jess, if the council has the PowerPoint, right? That's not going to come up on the screen. Okay, so we'll go right into our business update. New business interest is high out at the airport. Hangar sales, we just closed on a hangar sale. Recently, we signed the sublease, we signed the assignment of lease to the new owners, and they've already turned around and subleased that to an upstart charter operation. New hangar construction, we are working on a deal, a 30-year deal that we'll be bringing to you in the month of May for a new corporate hangar. So a lot that's going on in the hangars corporate. We also are talking to a third-party proponent to maybe partner up and build some T-hangars, box hangars. We're also exploring using our own financing to do that as well. So we'll be looking at that over the next fiscal year. In general, all of our operational segments are seeing growth. The charter operation, the business side, the general aviation, flight training, maintenance facilities, every segment of our business is seeing growth right now. Okay. And we're on slide number 4 right now. Airport revenue remains strong. Of course, we are watching our expenses very closely. In our business model, I've said it before, but I like to repeat it, that our diversity is our greatest strength because we don't rely on any one segment too heavily. So, and we had the 2 CARES grants, I'll call CARES 1 and CARES 2, combined for just a shade under $250,000 to help us prop up our operational budget. So we were able to weather the COVID storm very well, and we're doing fine out here. As far as the terminal goes, we're looking at, again, improvements to the terminal itself, inside, outside, the lobby, transitioning to that digital marketing platform with Jeff on board. We've already taken strides to look into how we're going to do that. Our social media, we've already grown that to over 3,000 people. There we go on slide 4. Social media is growing. Our website is the best that it's ever been. Jeff has put a lot of work into it over the last 2 months. If you haven't had a chance to look at eastonairport.com recently, check it out. It looks amazing, and it's going to continue to get a lot better. We're looking at creative ways to do some different things in our terminal. Flex space, opportunities for smaller lease deals. We're really looking at some opportunities to not only generate revenue for us, but to provide opportunity for small business startups, give them a little bit of space that will help them launch as well. On slide number 5, we'll talk about our community outreach, something that's very near and dear to my heart. And we are very pleased to announce our very first public event that we're going to start just in a few weeks. We're doing a walk and talk, a walking open house at the airport. With Jeff's help, we've set this up through our website. We're going to have groups of 25. We've been approved through the health department, so we have all the COVID protocols in place. And we're going to do about a 90-minute walking open house starting at the terminal down to the tower. We'll have some planes out. We'll be able to showcase our flight schools. We'll be able to talk about the history, the 79-year history of our airport. And also, this will be a good opportunity to answer questions and have the community understand, the impact of the airport on Talbot County and the future of the airport. Our ACE Center activities, we're going to start resuming them this week. The Civil Air Patrol is going to start meeting in our ACE hangar Thursday evening, so we're happy to welcome them back. We've actually had a lot of communication with other small groups. We're bringing them out to the airport safely and getting the kids engaged in aviation again. And down to the bottom, the biggest news as far as community relations go is Easton Airport Day is on the calendar for September 25th, 2021. And there's a lot of pent-up demand like there is with every other activity. We will have more airplanes for Airport Day than we've ever had because everything was canceled last year. Some of the early shows this year are still iffy, so we will have more than 50 aircraft flying that weekend. And we've already submitted, we just this week submitted our request to the health department. Of course, we're looking at it as a large of an event as we can, and we're looking at September. So we're flexible with our planning. We're really hopeful that we can have a huge event. We're going to open up more ramp space, and we hope we can get 1,000 people out there or more. Of course, we're going to adhere to whatever the governor's orders and the county's orders are, but open air, and we're going to get as many people out there as possible. We're going to do fewer vendors, no buses, increase the ramp space, possibly drive-up viewing area from the business center. So we're going to do some creative things to get as much of the public out there as we can to participate in our Airport Day. Slide number 6. Talk about our capital improvements this year. So for federal fiscal 21, our AIP grant, we're going to submit for just a shade over $500,000 to advance our runway safety improvements. The biggest expense there is going to be the runway 422 geotechnical evaluation and topographical survey. That's included in the price proposal that I'll need you to vote on here in a little bit as well. And then the other half of that, $200,000, is reimbursements for monies that are already spent on navigation easements, Forest Conservation Act, and MDE and Army Corps, the wetland mitigations that we've already done. So that's what we're putting in for this year at the federal level. They haven't come out and said it 100% yet, but the legislation that's been passed recently is also stating that that America Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA, is supposed to top up the other 10%. So FAA usually pays 90%. It's going to be paid out of the 100%. They just haven't come out and given that final number yet. So that's going to save us money as well. The other part of it is we're working with the state to fund their phase 2 of our obstruction removal program, which will be more tree removal this year. And as that plan is solidified, I'll be bringing that to council over the next month or so with details of the parcels that we are looking at. Primarily, it's going to be on the Commerce Drive area this year, but I will bring you details once we have it all done. This fiscal year that we're currently in, the state was able to provide about $275,000 worth of assistance, and we're asking them for a similar amount for phase 2. So we've been in communications with Mr. Ashish Solanki up there at the MAA, and they're working on some funding solutions for that. Slide number 7. I always enjoy talking about statistics. It's one of my favorite topics, especially when we're talking about airplane statistics. So there's our full year totals. If you stand 2019 and 2020 and put them next to one another, last year at the end of the calendar year, we came in 61,963, a decline of 16%. And really, I can say a decline of only 16% because a lot of airports in the country were really decimated. So we lost 16%. And a big portion of that was we didn't do the Naval Academy midshipman last year. We only ran about 25 students through instead of 200, so that accounts for a big portion of it. I did something a little different for you guys tonight because I wanted to give it some context, because when we just throw numbers out there, if you don't have anything to kind of base it against, they're just numbers. So I went into the FAA's database and pulled where we really sit with, for one, if you look at that top box, that's us compared to 256 airports with federal contract towers. So these are, this is very similar style operations. And we sit number 90 overall out of that category of the 256 FCTs. We rank number 90, and we are the 64th busiest for civilian flight training with 33,000 operations, and 35th busiest for the military flight training. And if you see in 2019, when we had the Naval Academy, we were actually 21st. So it's no secret we do a lot of military training in this area for a civil general aviation airport. The H-60s are in from the Pax River, nearly daily. So, and then when you look below that, it's a pretty interesting number as well. There's 520 airports in the entire country that provide some level of air traffic services, and we sit at number 244th. So we're in the upper half of all, and that's all airports. That's the big ones too. That's BWI, LaGuardia, LAX. That's every single one of them, and we're in the top half of all the airports in the country. So that gives you some perspective of how active this little airport here is sitting in Talbot County. So it's a feather in our cap. And then slide number 8. That's our fuel numbers. Good news all around. Again, every time I come in front of you all, I talk about how business is good. We're doing extremely well. Fuel sales right there. You can see the jet total nearly 25% up year to date. That is going to continue to climb, obviously, for the rest of this budget year, because it's going to be compared to last year when we were, stay-at-home orders and everything was shutting down. So we're going to end the year probably up 30% or more when we compare to what we did last fiscal year. Avgas has even recovered. We've nearly, we have broke even, and we're actually up a little bit on avgas. So that means the smaller aircraft are flying. The flight training is coming back. And you can see combined, we're nearly 21% over last fiscal year. And again, that's just going to continue to go up to the end of our fiscal year because of, just what happened last spring. And the Naval Academy, I didn't have it put in here, but the Naval Academy is coming back. They contacted us about a week and a half ago. They're going to bring, I think, about 150 students through starting Memorial Day weekend. So I've already talked with John Gaudieri, and we're going to have, we're going to move 10 planes up to the main ramp close to the runway, and we'll have the Navy here by the end of May. So, which is good. A lot of flight training, a lot of activity going on. So, a lot of good stuff's going on at the Easton Airport. So I'll take any questions that you may have about the presentation.
Do we want to see if Jack wants to say anything?
Well, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that we've done an amazing job, I think, Micah has, in navigating through a really tough period. And we've come out very, very strong. So I'm very optimistic about the future. Can Can you hear
Okay,
me?
thank you, Jack. It was a little hard hearing you, Jack, but I heard everything. So I really appreciate you being there. You do a great job, and we really appreciate your participation in being there.
Thank you.
Jeff, are you okay? You want to say one more thing?
I would just like to reiterate for a moment just how much of a pleasure it's been to work with the health department. I know they have been taxed with an enormous duty this past year. We're working through the pandemic, but they have been a real pleasure trying to organize events, and they have a great form online. So I do advocate, I think this ties in great with National Travel and Tourism Week. Organizations that are used to doing events that did not have events last year, please get in touch with the health department because they've made it easy, they made it informative, events can come back online, and the community is hungry for it. We announced the walk and talks on Wednesday, and less than a week later, we have only 2 or 3 spots left.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. Appreciate it. All the good work you're doing too. Micah, you want to go ahead and we'll go ahead and do this first request for
Yes,
So, Madam Secretary, can we do the first request for accept the grant funding for the Federal Aviation Administration for the runway safety? Can we do that first?
Yes.
Okay. Do we need to read anything, or we just need to do a motion?
Well, you might want Micah to explain it a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Again, this is the $500,266. This is to continue our overall program. Again, now this grant application does include immediate reimbursement for the runway 422 geotechnical evaluation and topographical survey, which I'm also requesting as item B. So putting the request in, we're looking to get immediately reimbursed for that work, or forward funding, reimbursement for easements. Forest Conservation Act and wetland mitigation is included in this $500,000.
Okay, so we're for purposes of council understands, Micah, we're doing the grant funding first. Okay, does everybody understand that?
President?
Yes, sir.
So the official request we moved from county manager report since Micah was presenting anyway. But the official request is requesting Easton Airport, council approved for Easton Airport to apply for and accept grant funding for the Federal Aviation Administration for runway safety improvement programs. That's the vote we need.
Okay. Is there a motion and a second to approve the request?
So moved.
Second by DeVillio.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
The second request that Micah has, you can jump in if you need to add anything else. Requesting council's consideration to approve a request from the Easton Airport for approval of an airport consultant AE Collins price proposal for runway 422 geotechnical evaluation and topographical survey.
So moved.
Second? Is there a second?
Second by DeVillio.
Okay. Madam Secretary, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack? Mr. Pack?
I'm thinking. Mike, is this an extension of this contract?
So no, this is not an extension of the contract for AECOM. This is work to go out and do the geotech for to see what's in the soil, basically in that 1,900 feet that
for 422.
For 422, yes. This is ongoing work that was planned.
All right, I'm good.
Okay. All right.
Council.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Clay. Micah, as usual, you've done a great job, and we really appreciate all the hard work you're doing, the upcoming events and stuff like that. So, we really appreciate your hard work and your staff too.
Thank you.
You guys got a lot of grass out there to cut and keep. So you do.
And they do a heck of a job. And we keep that business looking good for you too.
So, we appreciate all those employees doing the hard, finally it's getting sunny out and hot out. So.
I'll pass that along to the crew. Thank you, Mr. Callahan.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. Okay. Let's move on, council. I think Ray, we need an update on the sewer system smoke testing results from St. Michael's.
Yes, sir.
Right in the community. Yeah. So can you give us an update on all that, Ray?
Sure thing. Just give the council, back in March of this year, we had RAL Incorporated as well as Schumer Incorporated, our contractor, complete smoke testing, probably through about 90 to 95% of the sewer collection system down in St. Michael's, the gravity sewer system. And through that, we found probably about 120 areas which were problematic. And then we probably have about another 120 individual cleanouts / laterals that were also, that have problems in that they're allowing rainwater to come right into the system. And a lot of the broken cleanouts, typically what we're seeing has been where, let's say, they're mowing, the property owner or their landscapers mowed and they cut the top off the cleanout. And so that just allows water when that yard fills up to allow the water to just come in. We did also find a couple of spots where the roof, the downspouts from the gutter system for the roofs were actually connected in to the cleanouts. And so, we do, we're doing everything we can to remove the inflow and infiltration or extraneous flows out of the sewer system. And so, but one of the things we had a progress meeting about 2 weeks ago with rural development. And, one of the things in talking with rural development, we actually are in a position we can get additional grant money and loan to go ahead and make some of the repairs. However, rural development does not provide grants or loans to private, to repairs on private property. So, this is one of the situations that to fix a lot of what we've have identified as some problems, we need, I guess, to try and go to the property owners and see if we can't work with them to have that fixed. One of the things that, we have worked with the council in the past about trying to do what we call an illicit connection ordinance. We don't have that. So at this point in time, we probably need to send letters out. And as part of the smoke testing, what I will say, when we did the smoke testing, we actually took pictures. So we actually have pictures of all the problems. So we can actually send the property owner a picture as well as a letter outlining the problem that we found. And then we talked with Schumer. This is, again, a budgetary cost of about $500 per clean out to fix it. In most cases, what we'll be doing is instead of coming up with a PVC pipe out of the ground, we'll probably be coming in with a ductile iron pipe, which will survive basically a whack from a lawnmower a lot better than the PVC pipe. And then and in some cases, we may sink the laterals or cleanouts down so that they're below grade, so they wouldn't be impacted by, let's say, a lawnmower or something of that nature that would then break off the tops. So again, I think from the council standpoint, what we just highlight to you that we did the smoke testing. We still have problems within the sewer collection system. We're currently working with rural development for additional grants and loans to fix problems that are in the, let's say, right-of-ways that we have and easements that we have to do that. But as it relates to, I guess, the private properties owners, we'll have to try and come up with a game plan to maybe send a letter out to the property owners with the information saying this is what we found and we would need to work with you to have that fixed as quickly as possible.
Okay, Ray, that sounds great. Mr. County Manager, could you read off the request, please?
Yeah, I'm going to actually, Ray, you do have a request for council. Do you want to go ahead and read that?
I don't have it in front of me,
So Ray is requesting from the Department of Public Works is asking council's consideration to award contract bid 15.23 Talbot County St. Michael's Phase 5 sanitary sewer system replacement rehabilitation and Grace Street pump station replacement engineering services amendment number 16. This is to use that contract to hire RAL company, help them engineer solutions for what they found to be a problem with the smoke testing.
Sounds great. Okay, council, is there a motion? And a second?
Second.
Madam Secretary, could you please call the roll, please?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Thanks a lot, Ray. Appreciate it. Yep. Okay, next on the agenda is Laura is going to give us a little bit of discussion on unemployment, what she's heard and what she's been fooling with, giving us some information.
Fooling with. Well, that's an interesting way to start off. Well,
You said it.
you said it first. So every business, of course, pays into the unemployment trust fund on a quarterly basis. And we all know that last year, especially, there were many businesses that were closed, that had to lay off their employees. Some people were able to keep them through the PPP loans. Other businesses stayed open, and yet they still, couldn't keep as many employees. And then, of course, there were, businesses that did really well, some of the big boxes and liquor stores and things like that, who kept all their employees on and maybe hired. But because there were so many claims made, the unemployment, not surprisingly, the unemployment trust fund is broke or close to broke. So I was putting my business owner cap on, and I had logged into my Beacon portal on April 15th when the first quarter was due, and noticed that the rate table was completely higher. I mean, I'm used to paying for me, 0.003, and all of a sudden it was like 2.2%. So backing up, during session, there was a lot of conversation amongst the administration and the comptroller and legislators that absolutely not. They are not going to have business owners' rates go up. It's no fault of anybody's at all. So I logged in and I saw this. And so I called the Department of Labor and got a very nice customer service agent who was quite the chatty Cathy, who said, yeah, they're getting inundated with calls. And they said, well, why don't you log into your Beacon and at least you'll see a letter. Well, I was already logged in and there was no letter. And so I'm thinking, if I didn't get my letter, how many other business owners didn't? So here's what happens. And then we need to make sure the business owners know we need to all pull together, all the businesses in the entire state of Maryland. There's an automatic trigger that when the unemployment trust fund gets to a certain point, there are different tables, and each table has a range. For example, 0.3% to 5%. And then the highest tax table for unemployment is 2.2% all the way up to 13.5%. And that's called Table F. We've been using Table A for years and years and years. And so there's this automatic trigger to go to Table F. So yes, everybody keeps what I'm going to call their experience rating, that if you haven't really had any claims and they're not going to use 2020 data, okay, fine, but you're using a completely different table. So there's an automatic trigger, but I also learned that this is in the governor's executive order to use Table F. So then, of course, I started making phone calls. I called our delegate. I called Senator Eckert, and Delegate Mounts knew, and he said, we're basically just out of luck for 2021. And Senator Eckert was quite surprised. She goes, I thought we fixed that in the Senate. And I'm like, no. So I explained it to her. And she, emailed, got some information, and basically it's just like, you guys are out of luck. We're going to try to fix this in 2022. But you're talking about, for example, going from a 0.3% to 2.2 is 8 times higher. So instead of paying, say, 30 cents on every $100, think of it as property tax. Instead of saying 30 cents on every $100 in your payroll, you're going to be paying $2.20 on every $100 of your payroll. This is huge, and it's every business, businesses that were closed, businesses that laid off employees, and businesses that kept all of their employees on, whether through PPP or because business was good. And this is not the business's fault. We had discussions of this during our MACO meetings. As a matter of fact, Comptroller Francho was on as our guest one week. I specifically asked him this question, and he was adamant. He's like, absolutely not. We're not going to do this to the businesses. And, to find out that this, the automatic trigger, the legislature should have fixed it. They didn't. And all of a sudden, everybody's logging in this month, and they're seeing these rates that are 8 times higher. So I'm doing everything I can to reach out and coordinate, but I want to get this message out to all the Talbot County businesses. You need to call. You need to express your displeasure. And here's a couple of solutions. One, they could use some more of the rainy day fund. They could, but round 3 of and I know it's not the CARES Act, but whatever round 3 is called, we had Senator Cardin on one week at our MACO legislative weekly session. And this new round is very flexible. The only thing that Senator Cardin says you can't use it for, these COVID-related, when I'm talking about CARES Act, I'm talking about COVID-related expenses. And this one was money to the state and local governments. And there are no strings attached. The only thing you can't do is lower your tax rate. So to me, this is ripe for either backfilling into the unemployment trust fund, or if they can't actually just backfill an account like that, certainly creating a way that all the businesses can apply for a refund for the difference between, say, 2.2% and 0.3%, or whatever your experience rate is. This is unacceptable. The legislature didn't fix it. It's in the governor's executive order, and now there's a whole new round of money that this should be not overly complicated, but all the businesses need to know. The chambers of commerce, I'm sure, are picking up on this now, and the economic development. I'm going to do what I can to make sure this message gets out to the rest of the counties. But, even if you got a letter in your Beacon portal, all it does is explain what it is. It doesn't fix it. And it's just really frustrating that this was talked about. I know Delegate Mounts was very frustrated that they talked about it and nobody wanted to fix it. I guess they had other things to do in Annapolis, but this is our lifeblood, our businesses, big to small. And I appreciate getting this on the agenda tonight, because I'm going to put a shout out right now to the local newspaper, any reporters that are covering this. This is a big story. The only way that this is going to happen is for everybody to get in there and say this needs to be fixed. There is money out there, from the federal government, and this is the perfect use to help our businesses through no fault of their own, these rates for the next year. So, if anybody else has any comments, I did send out the email chain that I had going with Senator Eckert.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Price. Council?
So this is Frank DeVillio, and thank you, Mrs. Price, for putting this on the agenda. I didn't even think about it. I got the letter, last month or so, that my rate was going up, and I got very lucky, through COVID-19. I didn't have to lay anybody off, and I'm very fortunate, and thank God for that. But my rate went up, and so I called up thinking that there was fraud, that somebody had tried to file for unemployment insurance. As I've heard from many people that individuals have had claims made against them by family members fraudulently, things like that. And so instantly I assumed it was something incorrect in the system or a mistake that was made. And I was informed that no, it's just a new table. The actuaries have changed. They gave me the number to call to get an explanation on why they had to do it. But, and I just left it at that. I dropped it. And I just thought, there's so many times that business owners just suck it up and, take what they have to do and figure out how to make it work. And Mrs. Price, thank you for bringing this up to my attention and reminding me that this is not something I should sit idly by. I didn't decide this. I didn't tell other people to lay employees off. That wasn't my decision. I was fortunate in my own business, but now I'm paying the price for a government's decision. So this is something that is very important, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I would assume that the county council or the county, that we're paying this as well as part of the payroll for staff as well.
So actually, no, I did speak to Ms. Lane, our finance director, and we're all self-insured, as are most county governments. So it doesn't affect the county directly, but it certainly does in the fact that all of, our businesses support people who live here, who work here, and pay into our income tax rolls. So maybe it's not a direct effect on the county government employees, but it certainly has a direct county effect.
Yes. So thank you.
Yep. Mr. Lesher?
Well, I again, thank you, Mrs. Price, for bringing this up. Well-trained managers like to say, don't just bring me a problem, bring me a solution. And you've put one on the table, a plausible way to address this problem, and do we have any sense of this, what the scale of this would be for Talbot County businesses? Do we know what the bill is going to look like collectively here? I presume that takes a bit of analysis to calculate.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can just give you an idea that if you just put it in perspective of if you're paying at the lowest rate of 30 cents per $100 of payroll, you're going up to $2.20. And I think that you can just formulate that out. Well, I don't know what Talbot County's numbers are. Maybe Ms. Danhauser would be able to get that. But I think the point is it's every business. I'm sure Maryland isn't the only state. And I think this is a great use for this, whatever the new CARES money is called, but it's going to take all of us putting pressure on the administration, Cassandra just popped up in the chat saying Cassandra Van Hooser is taking notes. We've already talked about it. We talked about it at our last tourism board meeting. I think, and I mentioned earlier that we're going to have that joint tourism and economic development board meeting. But we need to move on this. Now, what I will say is what they've done is that nobody has to pay. If you have, I think it's less than 50 employees, you don't have to pay your unemployment rates until bill till next year. But that just compounds the problem. You're just kicking the can down the road. So that's not a solution. So it may buy us some time to work on this. But now that Annapolis session is over, this is the time to pressure your delegations. I hope this story can get out beyond Talbot County. I certainly last year wrote a lot of stuff on Kerwin, and I got picked up from some Annapolis papers, Capital Gazette, things like that. I'm fully prepared to write on this topic and try to get this picked up. But the more people working together on this issue, the better.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is quite an alarming story that these rates will be jumping up so exponentially on a one-year cycle. I think that the American Rescue Act does allow for those funds to be used to cover some of these unemployment expenses by small business owners. But that aside, the fact that these actuarials are bringing that rate up so high, it's what's troublesome. But again, I don't know for sure if the American Rescue Act does allow for that. I believe it does to offset some of the increase in some of these costs. But it's certainly something to keep your eye on.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Pack. Ms. Price, I really appreciate you bringing this to the community and the business people's attention, because it is still important. And it's just like Mr. DeVillio said, it's kind of sneaking it in there if you're not paying attention to it. At the end of the day, it's going to catch up with everybody. So really appreciate you being very active with that, and keep us posted if anything comes up. I'm not sure if down the road council needs to write a letter, or if that's the proper thing to do, but we'll take your lead on that.
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly start with that. I mean, if we can, get something together, and, I'm certainly going to use my Mako contacts to try to, get everybody the same information. But, if we can just tentatively pencil in that when the time is right, that we have some consent to go ahead and send something up to whatever powers that be. I would just say that, Comptroller Francho is running for governor. This is an issue he may want to take on. And Kelly Schultz, who is Secretary of Commerce, she's running for governor. And to me, I'm kind of like first one crosses the finish line is going to get the business owners' support. So I would say that those are some people that ought to be contacted. writing to the Secretary of Commerce and to the Comptroller, along with Governor Hogan's office.
Okay, Ms. Price, appreciate you bringing that and being on the agenda for that tonight. Okay, let's move on. County Manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Council President, members of the council. I have 8 items for you this evening. The first one is under boards and committee appointments. Under Commission on Aging, requesting the appointment of Megan Ryan to represent Talbot Hospice and the reappointment of Jennifer Pearson.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Secretary, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Next item is the Emergency Services Advisory Board requesting the appointment of Jean Cooperberg to represent the Bay 100 area.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Secretary, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
The next item I have is requesting council's consideration to remain meeting virtually through the end of May at the health officer's recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Secretary, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Thank you. Further requesting the council's consideration to adjusting the budget hearing scheduled for 7 p.m. May 4th at the Easton Elementary School to virtual at the recommendation of the health officer.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Madam Secretary, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Requesting council to declare Tuesday, May 18th, 2021, a special legislative day for the purpose of enacting Bill 1473, an act to establish the 2021-22 annual budget and appropriation ordinance.
Moved.
Second.
Madam Secretary, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Council, I have your county engineer, Ray Clarke, here on a couple of items again. The first one is recommendation to award engineering project management for the Leeds Creek Bridge project under bid number 17-08, an open-ended engineering services agreement.
Mr. Stamp, could you, I'm sorry, did you actually say Leeds Creek Bridge?
Yes, sir, I did.
Is that what you actually said?
Yes, sir, I did. I know you're all very familiar with this project.
I am waiting with great anticipation from you, Mr. Clarke.
You got it.
Ray, at this point, I think I'll just hand it to you.
Well, this is basically, I think, as Mr. Pack would like to see, is we like to get this project out of our office as well. So this would basically, we would look at hiring Wallace Montgomery Associates to help us do the public meeting that's necessary for the NEPA, which is the National Environmental Policy Act. We have to have a public meeting. At the same time, they'll work with us on the right-of-way acquisitions and then ultimately help us get this project out to bid, hopefully by this summer. So that's our goal.
Mr. Clarke, what is the lifespan left on that bridge?
I would
surely you just
because of the timber decks probably are very problematic. That we do have a lot of problems with the timber decks. We're probably very close to the life of that bridge, unfortunately. I guess back in the 1980s they did concrete sleeves on some of the piles to try and help them. But at this point, I think one of the problems we do run into is the timber decks tend to fail a little more than with the wood. And the new bridge would actually be using a steel pile with a laminated deck, which is what we've used in all of our other bridges at this point in time. If you've gone down to Bellevue, the Bellevue Landing is a laminated deck. That's actually a timber pile, but this will be a steel pile bridge with a laminated deck.
But the bridges are reviewed, right, to make sure that they're still sturdy enough. And
we do every 2 years a bridge inspection is completed we work with state highways through their open contract on that to do bridge inspections, and usually they come back with the timber decks a problem. However, I think right now with the timber piles, they were probably installed. I'm going to say they're going on maybe possibly 50 years old. So they've been, I know they're over 40 years old.
Is there lifespan on them, or
typically I think we're at that point, in the 40 to 50 years, you want to start looking at replacing those bridges. Most of the ones that we've had timber piles, probably we've got Bellevue, Landing, Moneymake. All of those bridges have been replaced, so we would probably have about another 30, 40 years of life out of those bridges. So I would say probably about 50 years is what you're going to get with a timber deck. With these steel piles, probably will increase that lifespan considerably.
In my opinion, this is our covered bridge. It is unique, and I just want to make sure that it's not being replaced before its time is up.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, this is, we've had a lot of problems, I guess, in the past with our timber deck bridges, which is why we've gone to the laminated decks. And part of the problem, I think, has also been that the wood, the quality of wood that we're getting, let's say the old growth wood versus the new growth, it doesn't last as long. So that's one of the reasons the timber decks tend to fail more frequently.
Gotcha. And Mr. Pack, I walk that bridge regularly.
I don't mean to make light of this, and I have some history with this project, as Mr. Clarke very well know. We were told back in 2007, 2008 that the bridge had severe structural issues to it, and that we needed to address those immediately. And here we are in 2021, and that's how immediately we've been addressing this. So. I know it was put on pause for a while because the state was doing some other work in the area, and we didn't want both bridges to be out at the same time. But this has been something that's been ongoing for a while. The bridge does, I believe the last time I looked, had some structural issues with the piling that need to be addressed. Also with the rising sea level, the coverage underneath the bridge was also an issue. So I am more than thrilled to see that we're finally going to put this out to bid to get these structural and safety issues addressed. And this is also one of the big concerns nationally of the president, is to address some of these structural projects across the nation when it comes to substandard bridges and overpass.
I doubt he's tearing down any covered bridges, though.
Covered bridges? I'm sorry, I must have missed that one.
The covered bridges, the ones that you see in Lifetime movies.
Oh, those bridges.
So
take a bar crane.
Just for benefit and clarify, this would be in the amount of $50,209 to Wallace and Montgomery for 20 hours per week for a 12-week period to accomplish the work that Mr. Clarke explained to you.
Corey, I was going to say, you and me need to make the motion in the second. I'll second that.
I will certainly make the motion, yes, to award bid 1708 to Wallace and Montgomery.
Second it.
I already did that.
Okay. All right. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Nay, sorry.
Sorry. You want drawbridge?
Mr. Lesher?
What's a drawbridge?
Property value. You got to understand all this stuff.
Mr. Lesher?
Oh, that's an aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
The next item I have, again, your county engineer, Ray Clarke, is asking for council's consideration to approve award bid 2004 to Rao Engineering, the low bidder in the sum of $108,254.16. A total of 6 bids were received. Funding will come from the Talbot County Sanitary District and or federal grants or loan. And this is for engineering design services, Ferry Point Marina, wastewater plant, TRAPPE, Talbot County, Maryland. Ray?
Yes, we actually received bids on this on January 28th, 2021. And ultimately, we did a review process, and Rao, we determined, was actually the most qualified to do this project, which is basically designing of MBRs. The focus right now is we had, I guess, Balin Consultants had done the preliminary engineering report. And again, this project will basically design the, let's say, community-based wastewater treatment plant that would serve the commercial units, and at some point in the future, the residential units, once we've amended the comp water sewer plan for those residential units to come in.
Thank you, Ray. So moved.
Second.
Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Council, I'm going to, just for clarity's sake, go back to bid 15-23, the Talbot County St. Michael's Phase 5 Engineering, Proposed Engineering Agreement, Amendment number 16, that you voted in support. My error, I did not give you the amount on that. The amount for that was $46,125 from Rao Incorporated. I just wanted, for the record, to have that noted. So if council could take another vote on that, I would appreciate that.
On what bill is that again, Mr.
So this is bid number 1523, the results of the smoke test.
1523?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And then just for clarity's sake, this proposed amendment number 16 is for additional inspection and engineering services required to determine the additional construction services required primarily due to smoke testing in the St. Michael's sewer system. And the funding for this proposed amendment, which was $46,125, mostly available through USDA loan grant package for $45,536.91. The balance, meaning $588, will be from the Talbot County Sanitary District. And again, I just wanted to give you that additional information for your consideration. So if you wouldn't mind.
It's in the memo, but it's up to you. I mean, those numbers are in the memo.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we accept the bid number 1523.
Thank you.
Second.
Madam Secretary, can you call the vote, please?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Procedurally, how we're doing it. We're re-voting on something we already approved.
That's good. But now we know we can pass it now. Is that it? Is that Mr. County Manager, you got a few more things, or are you good?
No, I have a couple more.
Okay.
So the next item I have Brian Lacates here, the Acting Director of Emergency Services, and they are requesting council approval to use contingency funds in the amount of $87,990 to procure new servers for the computer-aided dispatch system for the 911 center. Angela Lane is certified that there are contingency funds available for this purchase. And Brian, would you like to add anything or be available to answer council questions, please?
Brian, are you with us?
Yes, good evening. Thank you for having us here. Hang on, I'll turn our video on. I'm here with our Division Chief of Technical Services, Tommy Hadaway, that could answer any technical questions. So this is a request for replacing servers that we were unfortunately unable to forecast that needed to be budgeted for in the FY22 budget. We attempted a CAD upgrade on March the 30th. And during that, we had a failure. The upgrade was aborted when, upon investigation by the vendor. They found that our servers were undersized, underpowered, and they did not meet their newest specifications. Unfortunately, the vendor had never made us aware of the new specifications until that failure occurred. So we are now requesting contingency funds to upgrade our servers so that we can upgrade the computer-aided dispatch system. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Council, got any questions?
So is this kind of like when you have to update your iPhone to the next operating system and there's not enough memory left?
That would be very accurate. Yes, that's a good analogy.
All right, with that, I'll make a motion.
Second. Madam Secretary, can you call for the vote?
Mr. Callahan, I didn't get who seconded it.
Mr. DeVillio seconded.
Yeah. Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
And the last item I have for you, Council, is a request from the Department of Parks and Recreation to utilize FY21 capital outlay funding for the which you all approved for the purchase of a replacement tractor and a replacement pickup truck, requesting your approval for a new John Deere tractor in the amount of $22,800, piggybacking on the Baltimore County Public Schools ground maintenance agreement. And additionally, requesting council approval to purchase a new Ford F-150 extended cab pickup in the amount of $28,719 by piggybacking on the Howard County, Maryland contract. Funds for both purchases, a total of $51,519, is available in the FY21 capital outlay budget.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher? Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
As always, council, thank you for your support, and that concludes your county manager report for this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. County Manager. You did a fine job, great job. Okay, let's move on to Mr. Dorm. We got public comments.
We have a very limited amount of people in attendance tonight. If any caller wishes to speak, please press *3 on your phone, or if you're on the computer down in the bottom, click on the raise your hand button.
So you're saying at this time we don't have anybody?
We do not.
Okay, well, if somebody pops on and wants to talk to us, let me know, okay?
Will do.
Okay, all right. Council, now we're going to go to council comments. Mr. Platt.
I have no comment tonight, Mr. Callahan.
Okay, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'll just, I'm going to tack on what I commented on last time.
Okay.
It is now easy to get a COVID-19 vaccine in Talbot County, and our elderly populations have stepped up. Some 92.8% of Talbot County seniors aged 75 to 84 have received the vaccine, and 80.9% of those 65 to 74. If the rest of us can catch up to these wise leaders, we will achieve herd immunity and see the threat of this pandemic recede from our shores. This is the time to trust your elders and follow their example. Get the vaccine.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Well said. Mr. DeVillio.
I love that. I just want to echo that. That's excellent. So I had my vaccination done as well. I'm very proud and happy to admit that I did it. As members of my family have done it, parents have done it. My wife, she's had hers. So I'm ready. I'm ready to get back. I know we're still staying virtual for a little bit longer. I'm prepared to take the plunge and try to start meeting more together, knowing that we've done the right thing, that, county staff is getting vaccinated. It's time to show the public what you can do. And I think I'm getting more comfortable with that. So I have that. And then the only other thing is on Friday, there's 2 different meetings in the morning. There's the 8:30 till 10 o'clock is the business meeting that Cassandra is going to be leading, the business appreciation breakfast. And then at 10:30, there's a group of cyclists who are very active in Talbot County that want to have a meeting to discuss cycling safety and expanding that, which we all know bicycle tourism is very popular. If you've ever waited tables in St. Michael's, you have been paid in sweaty cash that came out of somebody's pants one time when they were riding down to Tillman or something. So it's very common. A lot of people do it, and it's I want to support it. So if you have any ideas, interests, thoughts on bicycle safety, paths, or getting around town, I would like to hear any of those ideas that you have. So that's all I got.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Revelio. Ms. Price.
I have no comments this evening. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Well,
sweaty money, huh? Okay. Didn't Alec Baldwin do a skit on Saturday Night Live about that?
Probably
did. Yep. Oh, that's funny. So now I like I say, I want to comment too on the vaccines. We're very blessed, and I'm ready to move on to I see light at the end of the tunnel here in the next few months. So, and things getting somewhat back to normal this summer, and I can't wait too. And I also want to commend council for good work tonight, and staff. I'm proud of everybody. We're doing a good job. We're here to support the community, and I'm glad to be a part of it and being a leader. All of us being leaders here, and leading the community on the effort of, the vaccine, health department, and everybody pitching in. So it's coming to an end. So seems like the president went on TV this afternoon, and we finally can take masks off to ones that have shots on the outside. You know what I mean? So we're moving forward. We're moving forward. So that's all we can say. It's all positive. Anyway, so Mr. Lesher, Mr. Vice President, you want to go ahead and wrap this up for us?
Yes, indeed. The County Council's next meeting will be held on Tuesday, May 4th, beginning at 1:30 p.m. The council will be convening an open session at 12:30 p.m. and immediately adjourning into closed session to discuss real estate, legal, and personnel matters as listed on the statement for closing that meeting. Therefore, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting and reconvene as noted?
So moved.
Madam Secretary?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
All right.
Thank you, council. Good night.